Hello, and welcome to the Block Explorer. I'm Colin Brightfield.
Hey folks, I'm Cash Upton.
The Block Explorer endeavors to bring more understanding and awareness to the world of crypto and blockchain.
Here we aim to have a thoughtful discussion about the most poignant topics in the blockchain and crypto ecosystem.
We'll help you to be more informed and inspired as we navigate this new frontier together.
On this podcast, we're here to educate and learn together. So please remember, none of this is financial advice, and investing in crypto can be risky.
In this episode of the Block Explorer, we dive into the NFT space and check in with the Stoner Cats NFT project, see what's been going on there. We talk about minting and some of the challenges that come along with that process. And then we go into some philosophical questions that are coming up in the NFT community right now in regards to the digital world and the physical world, and how do we bridge that gap. And then also some of the events that I went to this past week in LA with the real life NFT community.
I'm really excited about the Stoner Cats. Just watched the first episode the other night.
Yeah, what did you think of the episode?
I laughed. Yeah, it was funny. I thought it had some really cool potential.
Yeah, I wish there was more of Vitalik featured in it, but I guess it's the pilot episode, so maybe they want to save some of their mojo for what's coming.
Right, and I suppose there's going to be another 6 or 7 with 6 minutes each or something. So starting out small, but potential to get into longer shows. And I really love it because it's the artist taking control over the content. Right, they're not having censorship by Hollywood. They can say whatever they want.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see a project get funded and created in a new way like this. So there's an animated series, if you're not familiar. It's being created by Mila Kunis, Ashton Kutcher, Chris Rock, Seth MacFarlane, Jane Fonda, and then the Ethereum founder Vitalik Buterin is also one of the featured characters. And the premise is that there's an old lady played by, I think, Jane Fonda's voice, and she goes to smoke a joint, and she gets a weed delivery service, and then she falls asleep. Her joints get kicked into the fire, and all the joints get burned, and then all the cats are essentially second-handed this magical marijuana strain, and they started talking, and
sentient cats,
and here we go, down the rabbit hole we go.
Yeah, I love it. Really cool to see, what other shows. I mean, it reduces some barriers to entry in theory, right? You don't have to, have the high funding or the acceptance by, Hollywood or, the big production. So,
yeah, it opens up more creative freedom for sure, because you don't have to satisfy big wigs or studio execs or whatever, but it also, it definitely changes the distribution model too, because right now, you have to have one of the Stoner Cat NFTs, which is only 10,420 of them. So as far as a distribution model, I don't know if that's if you want the most eyes in front of it, right? Limiting the distribution to 10,420 or whatever it is definitely limits your market.
Right. And they might do another type of token to watch it, and then have the NFT holders do maybe, have other perks or something too. So I think they are talking about, how do they get the distribution out more?
Yeah, I think it's a great experiment right now, and I'm excited to see what they do with it.
And I think they've still done a pretty good job about not letting it be on YouTube, right? I think some people are saying just go to YouTube and watch it, but I think they're taking that down pretty quick.
I'm sure it'll be these things always happen, right, with internet culture. So I'm sure, whatever gets created, people find a way to pirate it. I'm sure there'll be instances of that. Who knows how successful, how long they'll be able to be sustained. Either way, I think that it's a fascinating experiment in creating a show, creating content, and I'm excited to see, like I said before, how it develops.
Ditto. We got a minting happening right now during this podcast. We're not minting, but it just dropped the bears.
Yeah, what is minting anyway?
Yeah, so it's a smart contract on Ethereum where the code is creating this one-of-a-kind of something, right? Most likely right now we're seeing like digital art or, these digital pictures, I guess.
Yeah, right. So when you mint an NFT, you're essentially tokenizing it, right? So it has an address in it on Ethereum. So you're taking usually like a piece of art or any kind of content, right, that's creative, and you're essentially linking it to a contract address on Ethereum. So you're making it essentially part of the Ethereum blockchain. You're making a token now you're creating a token that authenticates your ownership of said piece of art or whatever it is, right?
So a lot of times the minting is creating something, essentially out of nothing, but you can also turn something physical into an NFT too, right? Are people doing that with like their artwork? Are they taking a photo of it and then putting that on the blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, you can create any kind of media that you can create. You can essentially tokenize, So there's different examples of this happening, but it's when you're minting something, right? You have to first pay a fee, right, on the Ethereum blockchain, right? So there's a fee usually there's a cost of whatever the artist set to mint it, right? So if we're making whatever bulls in the block, right? I think they were 0.108 or something like that. That's a common price. I'm not sure exactly what they were at mint, but all these different NFTs have a minting price. So when you go to mint them, you have to pay the minting price, and you also have to pay gas fees, right? The gas fees are the Ethereum that you pay on top of it to get your minting transaction through the blockchain. So like with Stoner Cats, right, we had a huge clog in the fees of Ethereum because the gas fees were really high because there was a lot of demand, right? A lot of people wanted to buy or essentially mint Stoner Cats.
Because there's only a certain...
Or meowt them, as they were saying, right? At the same exact time. So there's a ton of congestion on the network. It's just like an Uber, right? If you're trying to get an Uber at like prime time in a certain place, there's a price surge, right? Higher demand, higher price because the supply is fixed. So it's just basic economics, right? So Ethereum runs on these economic principles because there's only a limited amount of block space. There's only a certain amount of space in each block to layer in transactions. And so it's competitive to get your transaction through. So when you have certain things that are highly anticipated, like Stoner Cats, the gas fees spiked. And people said that this broke Ethereum. I don't know.
Yeah, and essentially explain a little bit more. The gas fees in the contract, they were allowed to not have a cap. Is that what was going on? They didn't set a limit on them?
Some people said that. I'm not fully knowledgeable about like the exact code, but some people said there was some kind of flaw in the code that allowed for the gas fees to become exceptionally high. Either way, this is a function of Ethereum right now because it's like I said before, it's a limited supply of block space. So when certain things happen that are monumentous events in the Ethereum culture in the crypto space, you often see it too in the network when there's a really volatile, when the crypto market's really volatile. So if the market's surging or if there's an insane drop really fast, you often also see gas prices spike because everyone's trying to get certain transactions through. They're trying to buy, they're trying to move their assets, they're trying to make trades or whatever it is. So I wouldn't say that Ethereum broke because of Stoner Cats. I think that it did exactly what it was designed to do. The network didn't fail. The blockchain didn't fail. There were a lot of failed transactions though, due to people not being able to get their transactions through because of the spiking gas fees.
Right. So the gas price that they set wasn't high enough for what the other people on the network were paying.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you're essentially bidding. It's an auction to get your transaction into this next block, right? That's why it's called the blockchain.
Right.
Right. So say, for instance, just for this example, say there's only 10 spots in the next block, right? And you're cash and you're trying to get your cat minted. So then you say, okay, the most I'm willing to pay is 0.05 ETH to get my transaction through. But if someone's saying I'm willing to pay more than you, then their transaction is going to be in the next block. And then this can continue to happen for blocks and blocks and blocks. So your transaction can essentially stall. And essentially what happens is the people who set higher prices get their transactions through and get their cats minted in before your NFT or your cat or whatever it is gets minted. And what happens is all this value then actually gets collected by the miners, the people that are actually validating these transactions and making them process. So all that money, all that ETH is collected, but it's kind of just goes to like what's called MEV, maximal extractable value, which is a whole nother topic. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now, but essentially we had over 350 ETH, $790,000, essentially just gone to lost, failed transactions because of gas fees.
And a lot of critics of that were saying that EIP 1559 will solve some of this, and it will help with some of the gas wars, they call it, right? So we're going to do a deep dive into EIP 1559 in our next episode. So we won't go down that rabbit hole today.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, an ongoing conversation that people are having with the gas conversation with Ethereum. And we have different solutions that are going to help scale this with layer 2s coming out, which are like Optimism and Arbitrum. We have sidechains, Polygon. So these are all ways so that you don't have to have your transactions go through Ethereum. They can go on another network that touches Ethereum, but it doesn't actually use Ethereum for the bulk of its heavy lifting. So therefore, you don't have to pay such high fees.
It's rolling a lot of transactions up into one. And then
that's how some of them do it. They do roll-ups. Yeah, exactly. But when it comes to NFTs, NFTs live on the Ethereum network right now. And there's, ways to possibly bridge your NFTs to other networks. And that's kind of in development right now as well. But with NFTs, the main thing that I think is significant right now with NFTs is that they do exist on Ethereum's blockchain. They're native Ethereum. So if you want to participate in like the main heart of the NFT ecosystem, you have to
it's all on Ethereum. Yep.
Yeah.
And then that keeps me going back to the idea of, okay, so you don't necessarily destroy the physical asset, but the artist gets to keep that one, original creation, and then the rest of them can be sold as non-fungible tokens to their audience, and they can't be replicated like on Napster or fudged and pirated. So that's
you're talking about like fractional art, but there's no one way to do that because no one's really done it yet. There's different people trying to explore that right now. There was a podcast that I went to see recorded live in Venice Beach last week called The Edge of NFT, and on that podcast they had this company called Ecofy, and Ecofy is a startup on the Ethereum blockchain, and what they're actually trying to do is they are fractionalizing master works.
That's right.
That exists in real space. So there's one of the seed investors of Ecofy. He's a real life art collector, and he's collected Picasso, Basquiat, Banksy. So he actually has these real master works in his private possession. So his idea is to take these actual masterworks, completely tokenize them. So it's going to be put into a vault, and then you're going to have 100 tokens. And just 100.
And you can own a share of that.
So you can own a share of a Picasso. You can own a share of a real life Basquiat, right? But the actual piece of art, physical art, will be put in some neutralized, safe vault. And then there's a whole ecosystem built around the tokens that are traded on the blockchain.
Right, because then you could leverage that share of that art piece.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I don't know what sites yet or what organizations yet you could use these for. But
use them as collateral.
I'm sure that's coming, right? Yeah, so you could use these tokens, a 10% share. So if you had 10 tokens of a Picasso, that's a 10% share of a Picasso. So that's like, what, $several million probably, right? So
right.
There's definitely utility there. The infrastructure is not fully built out yet, but it's definitely coming. Yeah, I think it's fascinating, but one question that some people had, and what came up for me is, if you're putting the art in a vault, right? That's still like a physical space in the real world. That's a centralization vector.
Right.
So like, what if there's a fire and that bank or place burns down, or what if there's a heist, or what if there's a flood, or there's all these things where I think there's some kind of there's a beautiful thing where the NFT world, where if the asset is purely digital, it can't actually they can't actually be destroyed because it lives decentrally on the blockchain. So for instance, go ahead.
Realty deeds to property, for instance, right? Like that no longer has to be a paper trail anywhere. It can live on the blockchain. You don't have to worry about taking it out of your house in a fire.
There's a lot of use cases for this. But for the NFT space, like one example is CryptoPunks, which are really valuable NFTs. Now people are tokenizing ownership in CryptoPunks. So you can take a CryptoPunk. There's a app called Fractional, which will tokenize any kind of NFT asset you have, and then you can trade and sell those tokenized versions of the asset. So if you want to own a portion of a CryptoPunk, which is a digital piece of art that's often highly valued, you can do that. And what's cool is then there's no real vector of risk that like the actual real piece of art in the real life space gets destroyed. Or, I mean, what's stopping the person who has access to that vault from just taking the art and saying, like, sorry, if you own the tokens, I'm just taking the art.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's a good philosophical one. I like it.
Yeah, well, it's a bridge of between real life space and digital space, and how do you bridge that gap, right? If you have, and like this way that some artists do it is they might actually make like a real painting on canvas, and then they'll make an NFT of it as well, and they'll sell the NFT and the painting as a bundle, right? So if you buy the NFT or if you buy the digital, the real life painting, whatever way you come across it and procure it, you get both. So you get a digital representation of it that lives on the blockchain, and you get the actual piece. But then also it comes down to this like weird catch of like, okay, what if you hold the NFT but sell the painting, or what if you hold the painting and sell the NFT? So it's a whole nother vector of...
Right, because if you sold the painting, someone else could take a picture of it and then turn it into an NFT.
Yeah, exactly. Representation of artistic value.
I love it. That's so interesting. Because, yeah, you are destroying art at the end of the day, too.
Yeah, are you? But, I mean, you can come down this rabbit hole.
Putting into another form.
Yeah, what is art? And, like, yeah, who's to say, like, is... I mean, a lot of people would say that a painting is superior to a digital piece of art, but this is kind of like the controversy, right? And people are up in arms of people spending thousands of dollars, millions of dollars on essentially JPEGs, right?
Uncorruptible JPEGs.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially still just
JPEGs on your computer. Yeah, so this is a fascinating kind of turning point in the art world, and that's why it's so cool to do what I did last week and go to some of these events in real life.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. You went to the gallery down in Venice.
Yeah, so there's a couple events I attended last week. I attended a recording of this Energy of NFT podcast where they talked about Ecofy. And then on Thursday, I went to the Bright Moments Art Gallery, which is an NFT gallery in Venice. And they were having a panel of crypto artists, of NFT artists, and they talked about just their experience and what it's like to be an NFT artist right now, and what they've kind of noticed in this space. And then after that, they had a show of NFTs created by these artists, and it was called Electric Psychedelia. So it was really cool, kind of geometric, kind of Fibonacci looking psychedelic shapes, visuals, and like there were these cool loops, and they paired, some of them were paired with music, and they had them projected on the wall, they had them on monitors, and they had a nice kind of reception for them. And at the same time, they also had an auction. Auction for the art.
Yeah, that sounded really cool. You're in real life, but betting on an NFT, and you're using your MetaMask wallet, you said?
Yeah, exactly. So they had the different pieces of art that were NFTs that were on auction, and they had them on a big screen, and they had a QR code right there on the screen. So you just go up there with your phone, scan the QR code, it brought you to a live auction website. And on that website, you could go into each piece of art that was on auction, and you could place your bid in ETH. And then when you place your bid, it would open up your MetaMask app on your phone. You'd sign and approve the smart contract to interact with the auction app, the auction website, and then you would approve your bid. And then once you placed your bid, the screen would update, and it would show, that a new bid had been placed, and the counter actually reset for another 15 minutes, which was great for the artist because you can't just swoop in there at the last second.
It allows the market to catch up and bid what people actually want to bid.
Yeah, and what's cool too is this auction was happening in real life, so you could participate there at the gallery using your MetaMask, using your smartphone, or this was also happening, anywhere on the internet. So you could be anywhere in the world, and you could also still go onto this website and participate in this live NFT auction that was happening.
With ETH. Going back to our argument of ETH being a medium of exchange.
Yeah, so
money.
Here we have in the art world now this new way to buy art, right? So if you were there at this auction and you wanted to try to buy this art and you only had dollars or your credit card or your MasterCard, Visa or American Express, sorry, you're not getting that piece of art, because the only way you could buy it was using Ethereum. So you needed to have Ethereum, you needed to have it in a wallet, and you had to be ready to use that app to purchase this art. So it was an amazing experience in this new paradigm that we're living into.
I wonder how long it would take someone to arrive at that event, be like, oh crap, go on Coinbase, get a bunch of USDC, and what, convert to ETH, and could they do it the same night? Or
there were actually people there helping people out that wanted to learn, how to do it. And I think it's
Cool.
a great educational opportunity too, because people who were there maybe for the art, and then are just there to kind of be curious,
check out the vibe.
Yeah, and then you have people there like, oh well, like this is how you do it. Like this, you download MetaMask, and you deposit some ETH, and now you can bid on the art. So not only was it a really great way to advocate for these artists, but it was a great way for people to see how this is like a
get exposure into it.
Yeah, exactly. How anyone can do this. It's not that scary. Just like you download Uber on your phone and you put in your credit card. If you can download Uber, you can download MetaMask, and it's just a couple steps. Yeah, it's different. It's not always seamless as this is a new technology, but it's definitely accessible for everyone.
And the whole failed gas transactions that we were talking about with the Stoner Cats, because there is that unit of account built into the blockchain. The founders, Ashton Kutcher, said, we're going to actually repay everyone's failed gas, because they can go back and they can see every failed transaction and they can make it right. There is that full transparency.
Yeah, with that's exactly what you're saying is true. Is with every transaction on the blockchain, there's an inherent receipt that's immutable and lives there forever. So instead of you go to a store and I remember some stores, they would say if you don't get your receipt, then then it's on us or something, because they really want to be meticulous about documenting their transactions, et cetera, et cetera. Well, on the blockchain, you don't ever have to worry about a receipt, because every transaction is already recorded and it's immutable on the blockchain.
Right.
So no one can fudge it. No one can go back and doctor the data to make it seem like this happened or that happened. So it becomes like your on-chain resume, and your economic activity is there. And so you look at your wallet, and that's how they're doing it with Stoner Cats. They can see every wallet that had a failed transaction. They can see exactly how much it was for. And so there's no you don't even need to hey, it was me, I had a failed transaction. They already know, and they know for how much, and they know exactly at what time. So they have the power to remedy it. So it is kind of this new paradigm of, okay, yeah, maybe some things go wrong because it's new technology, but we also have the means to remedy it in a nice, clean, elegant, smooth way, where we don't have to go in with paper receipts and say, hey, I had a failed this, or my transaction was failed. Is the people who created it have access to that information readily. But I think what was cool for me, what I got most, out of the NFT experience and going to those galleries, was that the NFT space is so new, right? We have 3-year-olds teaching 2-year-olds a lot in this space, right? Everyone's pretty new. It's a very new technology. It's a very new space. And so the opportunities are endless to kind of co-create the kind of world that we want and kind of values you want to instill upon this new adventure, right? So people, I remember on the panel that kept coming up is what kind of art world do we want to live in, right? Do we want to live in a world where we really incentivize flipping art and just trying to get rich quick, or are we trying to invest in community and supporting artists? And because there's this whole contract that gets talked about, smart contracts that get talked about a lot with royalties, and if you sell the NFT, then certain amounts of it get kicked back to the original artist.
Right.
And then you can have that right now. With traditional art, these contracts that say, secondary market sales, the original artist should get some of this or whatever. How much of that actually gets enforced and how it actually materializes, who knows? It's kind of...
How do you hold it accountable?
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard. With smart contracts, they try to make that a little bit easier. But who's to say, in the future, 5 years, 10 years from now, if we're still going to be using Ethereum, if we're still going to be using these smart contracts, this technology, again, is so new that we don't know really where it's going to turn. All that being said, what isn't the appropriate amount for artists to get royalties? What percentage of the smart contract should they, of our secondary sales should they get? Should it be 10%, 20%, 50%? Should artists be relying on secondary sales for their income? I mean, or what are we incentivizing? Are we incentivizing people who just want to buy NFTs and flip them? Or are we like trying to get people who buy into the community of like what that art means or what that art represents and really want to like support, what kind of communities we can create when we have people really invested in the community and that really want to be there and for the long term, rather than just like short term, like do this, do that, maybe make some ETH real fast. Who knows?
And I feel like the access to community and access to an artist base helps the artists out to not rely on secondary market so much, to get their art out more to a wider audience and not rely on middlemen and galleries that are taking big cuts of the artist's time. Yeah. And allowing the artist to get out to more people.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this talk of 1,000 true fans that gets talked about a lot in the creative circles, and especially in the online world. And it's this idea that if you have 1,000 true fans, and a true fan is someone who's going to buy pretty much anything you put out, and if you have 1,000 of them, so on average, a true fan will spend like $1,000 a year on whatever you're putting out, your content or your art. So if you have 1,000 true fans, and they each spend about $1,000 on your art every year, or no, excuse me, $100. Even lower. The bar is even lower. A true fan is someone who spends $100 on your art every year.
Yep.
And you have 1,000 of them. That's $100,000 a year. It's not the most amount of money, but it's a living for most people. You can definitely live decently for that in most places of the world. So that's all you need really is 1,000 true fans. So if you're an artist and you can make a community with 1,000 true fans, then you're good to go. So maybe that's a more sustainable approach than trying to go for this kind of satisfy the secondary market, get royalties approach.
Someone else was talking about the unsustainability of NFTs.
Yeah, I heard that mentioned, and I think that's a lot based off of the fact that Ethereum still runs on proof of work right now.
Whereas we are in the transition, proof of stake is coming onto the Ethereum network, and it's not completely known when, but sometime late year or early 2020 they're thinking.
Yeah. So there's definitely an update coming to Ethereum that's going to shift the way that transactions are validated. Right now, proof of work uses a lot of energy and
graphics, computing power.
Yeah, it's not that efficient. And Ethereum's going to make an update. It's going to move to proof of stake, which is going to use 99.97% less energy. So that's a great argument for how Ethereum is going to adjust to be a much more green-friendly technology, way more sustainable, way more mindful of the energy impact.
I love it. And then even to go further, some NFT artists and collaborators are doing carbon offsets to offset the energy used to produce that NFT. The minting process to put it on the block is then offset.
Yeah, and that's really awesome. I think that's a great trend in just the entire NFT world, is this kind of lean towards charity and philanthropy. And you can easily build in these functions with smart contracts so that it's not based upon someone's whim, or you're relying on the good nature of whoever the board is in the board of directors of some nonprofit to keep giving this much, or whoever's the CEO of some company to give this much each year, like they used to give this much, so give this much. That the NFTs themselves can have these built-in functions where every time it gets sold, a percentage goes to a certain cause. You could have it built in so, there's a community wallet that supports a certain cause. There's all sorts of creative ways that people are building in NFT technology that inherently gives back just by it existing.
Yeah, we're getting excited about that. We're talking to some locals about potentially doing an NFT collab for a nonprofit. So that's going to be exciting when we move that forward a little bit.
Yeah, the possibilities really are endless. And like I said before, this is so new, and we really are in the beginning stages. And it feels good to be early, but it's also, I feel like, a responsibility that when we're early is to kind of set a positive example for the space and for people coming in and for the community, and really understand that, like, if you're in the NFT space right now, you're early. You're pretty early.
Yeah.
And with that, you're a steward of the revolution. And so, ask yourself, like, what do you want to bring to this space? What do you want to share? What kind of world in the future do you want to create?
It's an exciting question.
Yeah, and we get to play with the answers. Awesome. Well, I think that rounds it up today, and I really want to thank Cash here for exploring the world of NFTs with me.
Yeah,
And
thanks for getting nifty with me, Colin.
always like getting nifty with you, Cash. Well,
Should we go mint that bear?
I think it's bear minting time.
All right. Well, we'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in, folks.
All right. Thanks for tuning in.